Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial today. My name is Linda, as you all know. So in this video today, I'm going to be making a tutorial on this illusion neckline you're seeing right here on the screen. So it contains two stages in which you can draft this pattern. First of all, we're going to be making a princess bustier. From there, we're going to be transforming it into this. So without further ado, let's just dive into the main video. I've drafted my princess that bustier. So in case you don't understand what I did here, you can go over and search for the princess that bustier video which I have made earlier. So I just went ahead to draft a princess that bustier, like you already have the basic knowledge of drafting a bustier. Okay, so now you can see at this point is the shoulder line and the shoulder slope. I measured a neckline of about 3 by 3, so I had to square it and connect the line. So at the armhole is about 8 inches from this point to this point. Then I used my French curve to connect the line like so. Now we have our horizontal measurement: chest line, our bust point. On the bust I have waistline, and then our sewing allowance as well. Okay, now I went ahead to mark at this point for my apex. That's my nipple to nipple measurement. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 7 inches divided by 2. I got 3.5, so I added extra 0.5 inches sewing allowance to it, so making it 4 inches here at this point. So I have drafted it out, I have marked and measured the line. Now at this point here, to draft out the cup of the bustier, I went down by 1 inch from this place. From my actual bust point to this place is 1 inch, but for a busted person you will need to add about 0.5 inches to it, making it 1.5 inches. Okay, so for me I took out 1 inches from there, and from that point I came down to this point and I measured 0.5 inches inwards from this point to this point. I did the same thing for the waistline. I did it at the under bust and I did the same thing for the waistline. So at the under bust line I went outwards by 2 inches, and I did the same thing at this point. Then I connected it. Then I further went ahead to use my French curve to connect a line like so. When I curved this line, I stopped at this point. I went ahead to measure 5 inches downwards from here, 5 inches, and I went up by half of an inch at both sides, making it 1 inch. Now I connected my princess that bustier from this point, leaving 1 inch gap in between. I went outwards as well by 1.5 inches. You can use 1 inch to 1.5. Reason why I'm using 1.5 inches is because I don't want to fall short of the fabric. Instead, I would like to have excess of this fabric right here. Whenever I'm sewing, I would like to be having excess instead of falling short of the fabric. Okay, so later on when I'm joining the armhole, I'm going to trim off the excess. Okay, so since I've done the needed here, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to take our horizontal measurements. For my bust I have 38 inches divided by 4. Quarter of my bust measurement is 9 inches. I marked 9 inches at the chest line, and I also marked it at the bust point line. Now I also went to the under bust to mark quarter of my under bust line, which is 7.5 inches, and at my waistline, which is 7 inches. Now at this area I decided to shift this particular dart, which we are going to be removing later on. I shifted it into the other side of the bodies, because failure to do so, I'm going to be falling short of the dart allowance. Okay, now I've added my dart allowance from this point to this point, and I also added my sewing allowance here. So this is my under bust, which is 7.5 inches, plus this 2.5 inches here from this point to this point inclusive. And then I did the same thing at my waistline. I added the 2.5 inches at the 7 inches line I marked to extend it to this point. Okay, now I added my sewing allowance all through. For this side I added more than the allowance I added for the down part, so I'm going to be cutting it out and I will show you the next step. So guys, now I'm done cutting it out. I'll be extending this chest line, bust line, on the bust line and the waistline all through the other pattern. So I'm done extending the lines to the other side of the pattern. So this is the neckline, this chest line has been extended. Since I don't have a tape, a masking tape, I went ahead to use my pin to hold it on my table for the meantime, and I will show you what to do. If you have a compass, you can better still use your compass. You place the compass needle at this point, then you rotate it using the length of your underbust, from your bust point to your underbust. You rotate it round to get a perfect bust curve for your bust. Even if you don't have it, you have to place your tape rule. So for me, I have 3 inches and a half, so I'm going to be rotating it. So I'm done rotating this. Why I did this is to know the shape of the bust where I'm taking my illusion neckline, but for the middle is irrelevant. Okay, so I'm just using it to know how I'll be shaping my illusion neckline. So at this point, I came up from this waistline, from my waistline upwards. I came upwards by 2 inches here, and I also marked another half of an inch there. And for this other end, for this other part, I went in. I'll be using 2.5 inches, or you can use 2 inches. So the next thing I did was to connect from this point down to this point. I'll be connecting like so. So guys, for this part, I went out by 2.5 inches for you. You can make it 3 inches according to your preference. So I use the pencil to make an invisible line. I don't know if you can see the line. So I'll be following that line and I'll trace it out to complete my illusion neckline. Now for this point, at this point, you can decide to complete this part like so. You can decide to complete it like so, and you continue from the other part. You can decide to mark it and trace it like so as well. So this is what I did. I used my pencil first of all, then I used my marker to trace it out. So if you want it to be showing more cleavage, you can decide to go down at the initial point where I marked my bust measurement. But because most people would like to cover up a little part of the bust, so I went up by few inches, like 1.5 inches here. Then I used my marker to bring out the illusion neckline. So I'll be cutting it out for you guys to see now. So guys, what you are seeing here now is the concluded part of the tutorial. So this is the shoulder line in which I took off the open shoulder part where I trimmed off the one-sided part of the shoulder. Then this is the illusion in which you are seeing in the picture. I'll be labeling this as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the fifth one here, number 5, is the illusion itself, in which you'll be replacing this with your tool or your net. Okay, so this is what you'll be using to replace your tool or your net, because when you look at the picture, it has an invisible net in which you can hardly tell if something is covering that part. Okay, so this is the bustier form of the tube gown. When I remove this one, I take away this one. When I remove these ones, all the cut out parts, you'll be seeing the shape of the dress itself. So when you're cutting on your fabric, you can cut one, two, three, and four piece of fabric. Make sure you're adding 0.5 inches allowance for the joining allowance all through, both at the shoulder part and at the neckline part down to the side. I've added sewing allowance, my join allowance for the side. So you are going to be adding all necessary sewing allowance, joining allowance in between for your joining, okay? So guys, this is how it's looking like. So I've numbered it. If you're to draft the back, that will be another tutorial for another day, because this video is a kind of a hasty video. I wasn't so relaxed in making it because I have other things to sort out at the end of the day. It's a simple back. You can choose to use normal drafting of the back of your dress, okay? That you add your zipper allowance. Then for the neckline, make sure you cut something like this also that will attach to the back of the dress when you are sewing, okay? See you guys later in my next video. Bye for now.